Como mamá, siempre quiero lo mejor para mi familia. Por eso quiero lo mejor en mi cocina. Y eso significa solo huevos Eggland's Best. No importa cómo los cocines, siempre saben frescos y deliciosos. Y tienen más vitaminas D y E y el doble de omega 3 que los huevos regulares. Entonces, ¿por qué conformarte con menos cuando puedes tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best. Mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
If something in your relationship feels off, but you can't explain why. If you've spent years trying harder in the relationship and yet it just keeps hurting, this space is for you. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. Is narcissism worse now than ever before? Is it growing? Are we in an epidemic? I hear these questions often, and narcissism definitely seems to be everywhere right now. You know, the word is all over social media. It comes up often in discussions about relationships and families. If you're out talking with your neighbors, you're probably going to hear something about narcissism in a lot of conversations. Podcasts, blogs, articles, posts, groups, even in songs. It seems everywhere. So is it worse now than it used to be? Human nature has not fundamentally changed. Narcissistic traits have always existed, even if we didn't always use the word narcissism to describe them. If you look through history, literature, even mythology, you can see the same patterns showing up again and again. People are driven by pride, image, admiration, the need to protect their reputation or their ego. This all falls into this category of narcissism. In fact, the word itself, narcissism, comes from ancient Greek mythology. The story of Narcissus, it tells of a young man, his name was Narcissus, who is become so captivated by his own reflection in a pool of water that he can't look away. He is stuck staring at his own reflection. He's so absorbed with his own image that he eventually just wastes away while he's staring at it. Long before psychology existed, people were already recognizing this human tendency towards self-absorption and vanity. You can see traits throughout history of narcissism in the behavior of powerful leaders. Many rulers, political figures are known for their deep need for admiration and loyalty. They surround themselves with people who praise them, and they silence those who question them. This dynamic of protecting one's image and punishing criticism, it's nothing new. It has played out in royal courts, political systems, and institutions for centuries. Literature. Literature is filled with characters who display narcissistic traits. Shakespeare wrote about them repeatedly. In King Lear, the aging king demands constant praise from his daughters and reacts with rage when one of them refuses to flatter him. His need for admiration blinds him to reality, and it leads to devastating consequences. Writers, such as Shakespeare and others, have been observing these patterns in human behavior for hundreds of years. Now let's look at religious texts. They contain stories that reflect similar dynamics. People who are driven by pride, self-importance, and the ability to accept correction. These stories are often used as warnings in the religious world about what happens when a person becomes consumed with protecting their own ego rather than examining their character. Now, all of this reminds us of something very important here. Narcissistic tendencies, narcissistic traits, are not a modern thing. This is not a modern invention that we have. They are part of a long story of human behavior. What changes over time is not human nature itself, But the environment that these traits operate in, the amount of awareness we have, the amount of tolerance we have, the amount of, bucking up against it that we go through, that's what seems to change. Cultural values, social structures, and technology all influence how narcissistic traits are expressed and how easily they can hide. Right now, we are living in a cultural environment that seems to encourage the covert side of the narcissistic behavior. That side that's more invisible. And I want to talk about that for a minute. One of the ways I often describe covert narcissism is that it's narcissism that went underground. The core traits of narcissism are still there: the need for admiration, the fragile sense of self, the protection of the ego, the discomfort with accountability, the tendency to manipulate others in order to maintain control over how they are perceived. All of these core traits are still there. And it's a whole lot of image control. But instead of appearing grandiose, arrogant, or dominating, these traits become hidden. They go underground. So instead, this person appears sensitive and vulnerable, but the narcissism is lurking right under the surface. Rather than openly demanding attention, the covert narcissist learns to protect their image quietly. They become skilled at appearing thoughtful, reasonable, supportive, even self-sacrificing. On the surface, they may look like the nicest person in the room. But beneath that surface, the same narcissistic dynamics that we see throughout human nature, throughout decades and centuries, the same dynamics still exist. The same need to be right. The same inability to tolerate criticism. The same pattern of shifting blame when something goes wrong. And when these traits exist under the surface, the ones who experience them, well, those are the people that are closest to them. You can clean your image up an awful lot. You can make yourself look good out in public and around a lot of people. You can even fool a lot of people in your life. But when your core is full of arrogance, entitlement, disdain for others, competitiveness, superiority, jealousy, when your core is full of that, I don't care how clean you get your image, you cannot hide that core from those that are closest to you, from your intimate relationships, from your partners, your spouses, or even your children. You just can't do it. These traits will come out in your interactions with them. They will show up, and they will hurt those that are closest to you. Covert narcissistic individuals often appear calm, supportive, flexible, understanding. They may present themselves as your biggest supporter, your closest ally, the person who just wants you to be happy. And you may believe them. The people around you certainly will. But it's not what you end up experiencing with them over time. They can be surprisingly mean while maintaining a pleasant exterior. They can be unmoved by your feelings while sounding sympathetic. They can quietly manipulate situations while presenting themselves as cooperative and reasonable. You see, they are experts at image management. So why does narcissism in our cultures, why does it sometimes go underground? There's lots of reasons for this, and today I want to explore 5 of them. Human behavior does not develop in isolation. Certain environments reward certain behaviors. And right now, there are several cultural conditions that make covert narcissistic behaviors and strategies particularly effective. So let's look at these. Number 1 is a culture that prioritizes image over integrity. This is an environment where how things look matters more than what is actually happening. One factor that has really intensified this for our culture is this rise of social media. For most of human history, people lived in relatively small communities where their character was known through their everyday interactions with each other. Today, much of what others know about our lives comes through carefully selected snapshots, photos, posts, brief glimpses that show only what we choose to share. Social media has made it easier than ever to curate how our lives appear to others. We can present the highlights, we can filter the difficult moments, and we can shape a narrative that looks polished and successful. Well, over time, this can subtly shift the focus from living honestly to managing how things look. When appearance becomes the primary measure of success, maintaining the. Let's pause this for a minute. Number one is a culture that prioritizes image over integrity. This is an environment where how things look matters more than what is actually happening. And one factor that has intensified our culture's focus on image is the rise of social media. For most of human history, when you look at that, people lived in relatively small communities and they knew each other, okay? Neighbors knew neighbors and family members knew family members. Their character was known through everyday interactions with each other and developed over time. But today, much of what others know about our lives comes through carefully selected, snapshots, photos, posts, brief glimpses that show only what we choose to share. Social media has made it easier than ever to curate how our lives appear to others. We can present the highlights, filter the difficult moments, and shape a narrative that looks polished and successful. Over time, this can subtly shift the focus from living honestly to managing how things look. And when appearance becomes the primary measure of success, maintaining the image can start to matter more than addressing what is actually happening beneath the surface, thus laying the foundation or laying the environment for covert narcissism. Because when image becomes more important than integrity or honesty, people can become highly motivated to protect how they are perceived rather than to examine their own behavior. This kind of environment is particularly useful for covert narcissistic dynamics because covert narcissism depends heavily on image management. If someone can maintain the appearance of being kind or supportive or respectable, their behavior behind closed doors becomes much harder for others to question. Number two is impression management replacing self-reflection. This condition allows covert narcissism to thrive when people are taught, often from childhood, that managing how others see you is more important than examining your own behavior. So that management of your image starts to replace self-reflection. In many image-conscious environments, children quickly learn that reputation matters. Anger may be unacceptable to show, vulnerability may be viewed as a weakness, and admitting mistakes can feel dangerous because it risks damaging how the family and how you are perceived by others. Imagine a child growing up in a home where mistakes are treated as embarrassing rather than opportunities to learn. That is a huge difference. If the child hurts a sibling's feelings or behaves badly at school, the main concern in some families, in too many families, is not about understanding what happened or helping the child to reflect on their behavior. Instead, the main concern becomes how it reflects on the family or how it reflects on that child. It becomes more focused on the embarrassment of it. The message becomes something like, don't let people see that side of you, or what will people think of our family? And that's where the focus lies. Instead, it should be a moment of learning and growth, and that should be okay. It should be a time for your child to learn how to say, I'm sorry that I hurt you. Let me think about how I can do better. Now the child is learning a set of skills that's very important in life. Instead, when we're focused on the image, they learn how to explain things away. They learn how to make themselves look good in the story. They learn how to protect their image rather than to examine their own behavior. Over time, as that child grows into adulthood, they may become very skilled at presenting themselves as kind, thoughtful, and responsible. But when someone points out something hurtful that they've done, their first instinct isn't reflection because that was never taught, never encouraged. Instead, their first instinct is to protect their own image. You're going to hear things like, well, I was only trying to support you, or I'm the one who's always encouraging you, or you're misunderstanding what I meant. The focus shifts away from examining their own behavior and toward preserving how they are perceived. And they learn that from childhood. In environments like this, people don't learn self-reflection. They learn image management. They learn how to sound kind even when they feel resentful. They learn how to appear supportive while quietly undermining others. They learn how to appear cooperative while still getting their way. Those skills can become highly refined over time. And the higher that refinement, the more covert.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Para mi familia siempre estoy en mi mejor momento, por eso también quiero lo mejor en mi cocina, y eso significa solamente huevos de Eggland Best. Siempre tienen un sabor tan fresco y delicioso, con 6 veces más vitamina D, 10 veces más vitamina E y 25% menos grasas saturadas que los huevos comunes. Entonces, ¿por qué darle menos a tu familia cuando pueden tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best, mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos.
The narcissism. For someone with narcissistic tendencies, these traits, these skills that they learn, this image management, provides exactly what they need to protect their ego while maintaining the appearance of being a good person. Number 3 is victimhood becoming social protection. One of the defining strategies of covert narcissism is the ability to present oneself as the injured party. When conflict arises, the covert narcissist quickly shifts into this role of being the one that was misunderstood or the one that was mistreated. If you bring up something that hurt you, they respond with statements like, I can't believe you think that about me. Or, I try so hard and somehow it's never enough. I guess I'm just the bad guy here. Now the conversation shifts. Instead of discussing the original issue, you're now building them up. You're now taking care of their hurt feelings. And not just you. Everyone around them does this too. Everyone around them begins to comfort the person who appears wounded. In group settings such as families or workplaces, communities, churches, someone may present themselves publicly as the person who is constantly misunderstood or unfairly criticized. And the people around them, they may quickly rush in to reassure them, to comfort them, to build them up. Others may start defending them or questioning the motives of the person who raised the concern. Very quickly, the person who brought up the issue may feel like they've done something wrong. The social sympathy flows toward the person who appears wounded, and the original behavior, it gets lost in all of that. It never actually gets examined. This is why victim positioning is such a powerful strategy for a covert narcissist. It redirects attention away from accountability and towards, earning sympathy, towards protecting the feelings of the person whose behavior was being questioned in the first place. In environments where the person who seems most hurt automatically receives the most sympathy, this strategy works extremely well. The covert narcissist gains emotional protection without ever addressing their behavior, without ever actually reflecting or taking any ownership. Number 4 is emotional language without accountability. Now, there is this widespread use of these terms, such as, narcissism, gaslighting, passive aggressiveness, emotional abuse, trauma. This psychological and emotional language is available out there everywhere, but it is often being used without accountability, without responsibility, without even understanding what it means. Today, many people are familiar with words like boundaries, empathy, trauma, even emotional intelligence. And these concepts have helped many people understand their own experiences and actually heal and find the help and support they need. But emotional language can also be used as a performance. Someone may talk extensively about empathy while refusing to acknowledge when they've hurt someone close to them. They may speak about boundaries and it sound good on paper, but then they actually use those boundaries to shut down accountability. They may describe themselves as highly sensitive, and it just feeds right into the victim role. They may explain how they are deeply caring and compassionate and have all the right words, but they consistently dismiss other people's experiences, perspectives, and feelings. Covert narcissists often become very fluent in this very language, which is what adds so much confusion to this, because they sure can sound good. They say all the right words, often at least, but yet they feel so empty. The relationship with them still feels so broken, so painful, so distant. This knowledge, this language, it allows them to appear emotionally aware while still avoiding the deeper work of examining their own behavior. Number 5 is a low tolerance for discomfort. There has been a cultural shift toward treating discomfort as something that must be immediately eliminated from our lives and the lives of those that we love and care for. But healthy relationships, they require the ability to tolerate uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes someone will tell you that your behavior hurt them. Sometimes you will realize that you were wrong. Sometimes growth requires sitting with emotional discomfort, at least long enough to examine yourself honestly. But in environments where discomfort is quickly interpreted as an attack or quickly swept under the rug, those conversations can become very difficult to have. Instead of examining the behavior, the focus shifts to this feeling of being criticized, and the person who raised the concern is now seen as the problem. And that dynamic, where discomfort is treated as wrongdoing, creates the exact conditions that covert narcissists rely on. Because then they can make you feel guilty for bringing up a problem. They never have to address the problem itself then. Now, you can see a pattern in this in a lot of areas in modern life, not just relationships. In many schools today, there is increasing pressure to prevent students from feeling uncomfortable. Topics that might create tension, disagreement, or emotional reactions, they're sometimes avoided rather than to be discussed thoughtfully. The goal is often to protect the students from distress, and that comes from a good intention. But learning requires encountering ideas that challenge you, confuse you, even frustrate you. When discomfort is avoided instead of navigated, students miss opportunities to practice disagreement, to use curiosity, and to expand critical thinking. Learning how to sit with discomfort, that's part of intellectual growth. Social media platforms have made it extremely easy to remove anything that makes us uncomfortable. If someone posts an idea that we disagree with or that challenges our perspective, well, that's easy. We can immediately mute or block or unfollow them. All done. Now I don't have to think about it. While protecting yourself from harassment or genuine harm, that is definitely important. But the broader effect can be that people gradually surround themselves only with voices that reinforce what they already believe. That is happening and extremely common in social media. Instead of practicing how to engage with disagreement in a healthy way, many people simply eliminate it from their environment. In the workplace, managers report that giving honest feedback has become increasingly difficult because employees often interpret constructive criticism as a personal attack. But growth in any profession just like in the education system, it requires hearing things like, this part of your work needs improvement, or this approach didn't work well. Those conversations are uncomfortable, yes, of course, but they are also how people develop new skills. When discomfort is treated as something that must be avoided, organizations can struggle to have the honest conversations that are needed for the improvement of their workers. Let's talk about parenting. Many parents feel a strong pressure to shield their children from frustration, disappointment, or any type of emotional pain. I can relate to this. I've definitely been in that situation. And again, this comes from a place of love. We want to protect our children. We want our children to feel happy and safe. But part of childhood development involves learning how to tolerate disappointment, how to handle and navigate your way through pain. Losing a game, not getting what you want, hearing no, working through conflict with friends. These are necessary things to go through so you can build the skills needed to be able to navigate through this type of stress in life. If children are never allowed to experience manageable discomfort, they may not develop the emotional skills that are needed to handle it later in life and even to be able to handle even more extreme emotional stress. One last area where I want to point out this low tolerance of discomfort is in relationships. There's this idea that healthy relationships should feel comfortable almost all the time, or maybe even exclusively all the time. If a conversation becomes tense or emotionally difficult, it's very easy for people to interpret that as a sign that the relationship itself is unhealthy. And I'm here to tell you that's just not true. Real relationships involve uncomfortable moments, and it's okay. Honest conversations, repairing hurt feelings, taking ownership and being vulnerable, negotiating differences, taking responsibility for mistakes. All of this requires being able to sit with some discomfort. But when the expectation becomes relationships should never feel uncomfortable, people may avoid the very conversations that will allow the relationship to grow. Discomfort isn't always a sign that something is wrong. Often it's a signal that something very important is happening, such as learning, growth, accountability, connection, or honesty. Now, all 5 of these conditions share something in common. They prioritize appearance over accountability. When looking good matters more than being honest. When managing perception matters more than self-reflection. When discomfort is avoided instead of examined. Now, in this environment, narcissism doesn't have to disappear. It simply goes underground. This is where covert narcissism thrives. Many survivors say that they have encountered covert narcissism in professional families, families that look good on paper, but not behind closed doors. How about religious communities in our churches where, again, we're focused on looking good? Socially respected families, highly educated environments, communities where appearances matter deeply. Those spaces often have a strong rule that you must look good to the outside world. But that can make covert narcissism easier to hide there. That is the place that's going to give them that image to hide behind. Now, I do want to say that doesn't mean it only exists there. It simply means that these environments may reward the covert style more strongly. Next week, we're going to look at ways you can more easily determine whether you're dealing with someone who has covert narcissistic traits or not. Now, I'm not talking about just in a spousal relationship here, but in the world around you. When someone is not in your immediate inner circle, it can be much harder to sort through the doubts that you may be having about them. I want to give you some very concrete ways to think through those interactions with them. While narcissism itself is nothing new, our awareness of it, especially the more hidden underground version that I'm talking about, is growing. And I'm so glad to see that. This is such important work for all of us, not only to help ourselves stay grounded and safe, but also to help our friends, our families, our neighbors, especially our children. Let's keep moving toward a world where integrity matters more than image and where vulnerability is valued more than always being right. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If there were ever an audience that I wish did not have to exist, it would be this one, because of what it means you've lived through. I'm truly sorry that you understand this so deeply, and I'm really glad that you're here. May this be a place of safety, clarity, and peace. You are not alone anymore, and you don't have to figure this out by yourself. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you'd like to learn more about the support, resources, or coaching that is available for you, you can visit covertnarcissism.com. While I hate it for everyone who understands what I am talking about, I'm really glad that you're here, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
Para mi familia siempre estoy en mi mejor momento, por eso también quiero lo mejor en mi cocina, y eso significa solamente huevos de Eggland Best. Siempre tienen un sabor tan fresco y delicioso, con 6 veces más vitamina D, 10 veces más vitamina E y 25% menos grasas saturadas que los huevos comunes. Entonces, ¿por qué darle menos a tu familia cuando pueden tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best, mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos.
The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes, and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.